logistic issues. So, in any case, we make progress. So, this session is a research colloquium because we believe we have invited academicians, researchers, both students and lecturers. So knowing research is a continuous process, so therefore at any level, one would want to continue abreasting himself with the current trends in research. So that's why we felt that this would be like a takeaway from the conference. Yeah, after the opening ceremony, we have this session. Then by tomorrow, we have our parallel sessions whereby each presenter will make his own presentation and the viewers making observations on the papers. So we have 2 papers to present this afternoon, but before we do that, we'll invite some of our dignitaries to come up on the high table so that we continue. Let me invite the chairman of this session, who is in person of Professor A.S. Bapa, who is the Dean, Faculty of Technology Education, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. Okay, let me also invite the HOD, Business Administration Department. Yeah. Dr. Babangida M. Musa. Yeah, let me also invite Dr. Bapa from Bayero University, Kano, to come up. Let me also invite Dr. A. Aliu from the department here, Business Admin, from the State University. So, last 2 but not the least 2 is Dr. Haruna Chiroma, who is one of the presenters here. Dr. Haruna Chiroma is here. Come up. Okay. Then I also invite Dr. Magno Nantir Yonla, who is the other presenter from University of Jos. So I think our high table is fully loaded, so we can continue. Okay. The first presentation is, as you can see up there, academic databases and search techniques by Dr. Haruna Chiroma. And we want to know who Dr. Haruna Chiroma is. Haruna Chiroma received BTech, MSc, and PhD in computer science from Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bayero University Kano, and University of Malaya, respectively. He is an associate editor, IEEE Access Q1. What is Q1? Maybe you will explain to us what is the meaning of Q1. Impact factor 3.552, USA, ISI Scopus Index. What is Scopus Index is one of the things that we will know later through his presentation. He is also an associate editor, Telecommunication, Computing, Electronic and Control Journal, Telkomunika, Indonesia, a Scopus Index journal. He is also an editor edited book, Advances on Computational Intelligence in Energy, the applications of nature-inspired and militaristic algorithm in energy, also Scopus Index, by Springer, Berlin, Hedberg. His research interest includes nature-inspired algorithms, machine learning with emphasis on deep learning and their applications in Internet of Vehicles, self-driving vehicles, big data analytics, cybersecurity, okay, information and technology, edge computing. Also, as a teacher, he has a special interest in technology-enhanced learning. He has published over 100 academic articles relevant to his research interest. What did I say? 100. He has authored hundreds, more than 100, over 100 in his research interest in journals, including but not limited to Applied Soft Computing, Elsevier, +1, International Journal, Information Management, Elsevier, Applied Energy, Elsevier, Neural Computing and Applications, Springer, and IEEE Access. These are all big journals, that are what is called index journals. We'll come to know through his lecture. He is an invited interviewer for 16 ISI World Index journals such as Applied Soft Computing, Elsevier, +1, Applied Energy, Knowledge Based System, Journal of Operational Research Society, International Journal of Bio-Inspired Computations, Neural Computing and Applications, etc. As at 17th of May 2019, his publications accumulated over 800 citations in Google Scholar and over 450 in Scopus. Citation index, over 800. He has delivered more than 10 research talks in different fora. He won silver and bronze medals at Malaysia National Invention, Innovation, Design and Research Exhibition 2015. He has been a technical program committee member for more than 20 international conferences. He was invited by QS World University Ranking in 2017, 2018 and 2019 to evaluate research strength of universities in computer science. External examiner to University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, and Bravian University, India. Presently, Chiroma is supervising 6 MSc students and PhD at Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, Nigeria, as a visiting senior lecturer, and he is a senior lecturer at the Federal College of Education Technical Government. We come together for Dr. Haruna Chiroma, and this is just an abridged CV of this gentleman. So I leave him with you so that you will learn from his vast experience. Doctor, you're most welcome. Let's have some silence, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the brief introduction. The chairman, Professor Sadiq Papa from Kotecha University, Bauchi, and the head of department, business administration, in person of Babangida. Ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues, good afternoon all. Today, we'll be having a presentation of a research colloquium. We'll start with academic databases and search techniques. Before I move into that, I think that the participant, the gender distribution is somehow skewed to the men. I think I'm only seeing only 4 women or 5. All others are men. So gender equality is skewed towards the men. Okay, let's leave it like that. Since this is a ground for struggling, we don't find much women here because it's a struggling ground. And even in sharing of national cake, they could have come and be agitating for gender equality. Okay, the topic is academic databases and search techniques. So we're going to look at academic databases and how you search those academic databases. So these are the presentation outline for today. We have academic databases and literature search. Then we have computation of Institute for Scientific Information, Web of Science, impact factor. How do you compute impact factor? Identifying quartile ranking, Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. How does journals are being ranked? Either Q1, how do you know that journal is Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4? And where do you find such kind of journals? How do you publish them? Where do you get the real original journals that are genuine? Because there are fake journals that claim to be ISI index journals, but they are not. I'm going to show you where exactly you will go to be able to get such kind of journals so that you will not be deceived by proprietary journals. So let's look at database. When we say database, what does database mean? It's just a collection of information that is somehow organized in such a way that it can be managed and it can be accessed centrally. This is just a typical example there that you are seeing. If you have this kind of database where you collect information, you can be able to have access to that information from different locations. Anywhere you are, you can be able to have access to such kind of a database. That is, if it is online. So as you can see the typical example here, let's say this is your database, it's in the server, and these are all systems from a different location, but are all having access to the information stored in that database. So that is just what the database means. As you can see on the board, the database also has some certain level of classification. We have the database for bibliography, full text, numeric, and images. There are databases that save images. There are databases for full text. There are databases for numeric numbers, and a database for bibliography. Just a typical example of a database that stores images is just a typical example is the JAM. You know, JAM now they use biometrics of candidates. So they take their features, images, and then store it in a database so that they can easily be identified. So that is just a brief of what database is. So let's look at academic. What is academic? An academy can be college, universities, polytechnics, and so on. And anything that has to do with scholarly issue is academics. So let's now look at academic database. What do you mean by academic database? You know, currently, we have so much literature on the internet. You can go to Google, search for a certain topic, you will see a lot of literature, of which many of them are not from quality source. The source are questionable. So to avoid such kind of getting literature from anywhere, a literature that is not credible, a literature that will come from a low quality source, so the academics globally, they now come together and form what is referred to as academic database. So that when you are searching your literature, if you are carrying out a high impact research, if you are searching for literature, you go to those academic databases and search your own literature. When you are searching literature from those academic databases, when you get there, you know that you are dealing with high quality literature. It has nothing to do with predatory journals or predatory literature. That is why the academic global academic community comes and forms what is referred to as academic database. If not, the scholars will be left with no option than to be using low quality literature that will come from questionable sources. You will agree with me if you just pick your mobile phone now, just type any topic of your choice in Google, you will see a lot of results will come out. A lot of results will come out. So when those results came out, you will know which one is the good, which one is not good, which one is bad, which one is low quality, which one is high quality, which we cannot know. That is why we have this academic database to differentiate, so that when you are searching, you know that you have to go to the academic databases and search your literature. You use those academic databases to get your literature and then be able to create or to form your literature around those kind of literature, no matter how good is your result. If you don't get the motivation, if you don't get your motivation from such kind of literature, when you send it to this high impact journal, the work will be questionable because the literature that you use in creating your own manuscript, the sources are questionable and they are doubtful. So to avoid that, you have to go to the academic database and search your literature so that you can avoid any questionable issue. So, the academic database is a central collection of information that is mainly utilized for research and writing. It includes access to academic journals, conference proceedings, monographs, short letters to editor, and so on. And the typical example of the academic database we have is what is referred to as the Google Scholar. You can see the image there. It's a typical example of the academic database that we have around. And this Google Scholar, this is the interface. This Google Scholar, it is free. You can be able to do your search free. You can search free, but the problem with Google Scholar, it indexes low quality literature, the middle class and the high quality. In fact, even if you just write and then upload in ResearchGate, after 2 weeks it will appear on Google Scholar. If you write in Wikipedia, it is not a reference material. You can write anything in Wikipedia. When you just upload in Wikipedia and write anything, it can also appear in Google Scholar. So it's left for the scholar to be able to go to Google Scholar and see which one is coming from the best sources, coming from the correct sources, coming from the quality sources. So if you look at this Google Scholar, it's somehow hectic. You have the good, the bad, and the ugly on the Google Scholar. So you need to be conversant with the literature, with the sources of those literature, before you be able to now use Google Scholar and get access to good literature. But as a beginner, you will not be advised to use Google Scholar because at that time, you may not know which of the literature in Google Scholar is coming from the good sources, which one is coming from the bad sources. So the best thing is for you to go to the other academic database that are well known across the globe. So that by the time you are conversant with those academic databases, when you come to Google Scholar, you will see a lot of literature that will come to you when you search based on your keyword. So by then, when you are conversant with those literature, you'll be able to know the sources, which one is good, which one is bad, which one you can use, which one you cannot use. So let's look at the top academic database that we have across the globe. Number one is ISI Web of Science. That's Institute for Scientific Information Web of Science. That is that this academic database you are seeing here, the first one, is considered as the most prestigious source of literature globally. In case anytime you hear any scholar that won the Nobel Prize, his research work must have been published in a journal that is indexed in ISI Web of Science. Because after this seminar, just try to look for the name of any Nobel winner. Just check his name in Web of Science. You will see his name will appear, because that is where it is considered to be the top source of literature. Any journal, the index journal, conference proceedings, and so on. Then the second one that is considered to be of high quality by the academics globally is the Scopus database. And this Web of Science and Scopus, they index literature from all disciplines, humanities, science, technology, medicine, any discipline, they index their literature, both Web of Science and Scopus. They are not specific to a particular discipline. Then after these two, there are academic databases that are discipline specific, depending on the discipline. They index literature that are related to a particular discipline. For instance, we have EI Compendics. This EI Compendics is an academic database that index literature of which they are highly related to engineering. Then we have DBLP. This DBLP is also an academic database that index literature related to computer science. Then we have IEEE Explore. And this IEEE Explore, it indexes literature related to science, technology, and education. Then we have Library and Information Science Abstract that index literature that are relevant to information science and library. So these are other academic databases that we have that are discipline specific. But they talk to us and said they index any kind of literature as far as the journal passes the rigorous criteria for indexing in Web of Science or Scopus to be indexed there. So look at, these are the three categories of the academic database that we have. We have that of the general, which means that this category of academic database index literature from any discipline you can think of. Then that of discipline specific, that such kind of academic database index literature that is related to a particular discipline. Then we have publishers based. There are academic databases that are based on publishers. For instance, now we have Science Direct. Science Direct index literature that are published by Elsevier. Though there are some other literature that we are able to apply to Elsevier to index, but most of the literature is for literature that have been published by Elsevier. Then we have Springerlink. This Springerlink indexes all literatures that are published by Springer. So in such kind of a database, you can have literature from any discipline, depending on what literature those publishers publish. So they have this database, and can be able to go there and then search for the literature that has been published by either Elsevier or Springer or IEEE. There are others, depending on the publisher. I bring these three because they are the top publishers across the globe. So let's now pick some of these databases and discuss them and see how they are. Number one is ISI Web of Science. That's Institute for Scientific Information Web of Science. This Web of Science is just a name, but it indexes literature, as I said, from every discipline, even humanities. Then Thomson Reuters described Web of Science as the world-leading source of scholarly research that have over 1 billion cited references. This is how it is being described by Thomson Reuters. Then this Web of Science was owned by Thomson Reuters, but now the new owners are called Clarivate Analytics. They are the new owners of Web of Science. Then this Web of Science, they always index journals. They index journals, conference proceedings, books, monographs, and so on. But there are criteria that each of these journals have to pass through before it will be indexed in Web of Science. The rejection rate for the journals that have been indexed into such kind of journals is up to 93%. The rejection rate, it can be 45, it can be 20, it can be 40. It is up to 93%. The rejection rate is very, very high because of the high level of competition that from scholars across the globe. We can look at the number of scholars we have across the world, and everyone wants to publish in such kind of journals. And there are so many funding bodies that when they give you grant, that's why they expect you to publish, because they know there is know-how. You publish in such journal without contributing something new in the body of literature. So they will ask you that by the time you finish your work, this is where they want you to publish. So you can see the number of grant funding bodies we have across the world. Then the limited space that's available in those journals. See the competition will be very, very high. So you need a solid research to be able to penetrate and get published such kind of journals. So the Web of Science platform is a search and discovery choice for more than 7,000 academic and research institutions, national government and funding organizations, publishing organizations in different countries, more than 100 countries that come from more than 100 countries. So it's cover indexing of world most important multidisciplinary research, the discovery journals, as I mentioned earlier on, journals, books, edited books, book chapters, conference proceedings, published data set, patent, short communications, letter to editor, and so many other literature that you can find around. So this is the typical example of the Web of Science. As you can see, the Web of Science is classified into different segments. We have Science Citation Index expanded, we have Social Sciences Citation Index, we have Art and Humanities Citation Index, Conference Proceedings, Book Citation Index, Current Chemical Reactions, and Index Chemical. This classification one after the other. Science Citation Index expanded, it indexed journals from the sciences. Any journal from the sciences, this is where it's being indexed, and it has an impact factor. Then journals and literature, and other literature from social sciences, they are indexed in Social Sciences Citation Index. Then literature that are from art and humanities, they are indexed in art and humanities, and that of social sciences, it will only be maybe close to half to that of sciences. That is why publishing in such kind of journals from social science, art and humanities is far, far more difficult than that of sciences. Because the number of journals are not much, and the volume of literature that they accept is very, very high. So that's why mostly all these funding bodies, when they give you a research grant, if you are from the social sciences, if they want you to publish if they want the science, those from the science to publish 2 articles in Web of Science in this journal with impact factor, they will ask those from the social science or humanities to publish 1. And in some cases, instead of publishing in Web of Science, they will ask them to publish in Scopus, because they know the rigorosity that you can take from those disciplines to be able to get to publish in such top journals when it comes to art and humanities and in social science. But it's more easier in the sciences than other disciplines. So Web of Science, almost every year, they review around 3,000 to 4,000 new journals that want to be indexed in Web of Science. But at the end of the day, you find out that it's just around 10 to 12% that will be the rigorous criteria that will be accepted for indexing in Web of Science. So you can see, if you look at the slide, you can see the sciences, you can see the number of the journals. 8,500, 3,000, and 1,700. So you can see how that of sciences have a very high number, while other disciplines, if you combine all, they will only be competing with the half to that of the sciences. So this is the interface for the ISI Web of Science. This is the interface of the academic database. As I said, the new owners are Clarivate Analytics, not Thomson Reuters as it used to be. However, before you can have access to such kind of academic database, you must have institutional subscription. In fact, you cannot be able to see anything. Your institution has to subscribe first before you can be able to have access to literature that are indexed in ISI Web of Science. So once, the only thing you can do now is only for you to be able to see the interface, but you cannot have access. Then this is when you log in, this is what you will see. This is the database. You can be able to do your searching here. You can see the interface looking very simple. But by the time you start searching and making analysis, you will know how powerful is the website, is the database. The database is very, very powerful with a lot of information. But you can see the interface just looking very, very, very simple. So this is how you do a search. You can search name of a scholar, you can search literature, and you can search so many other even patents you can search. You can also search funding bodies. However, you can have access to literature that are indexed there. But if you want to have access to the full-fledged manuscript, it will give you link to the publishers. So it's between you now and the publishers that will now sort it out. If it is open access, then you can get to download it and use it. If it is not open access, which means your institution have to subscribe to that publisher before you can get to have access to the literature, or you buy individually. And when you are buying individual, it has to be one or two, because there is nowhere individual you go and be subscribing a complete publisher. So this is a typical example of the Web of Science. These are literature that were search results that from the Web of Science that you can see there. So you can search any topic of your choice. You can query a database depending on the keywords of your research area. So still we are in the Web of Science. So if you look at the left-hand side here is funding bodies, these are funding agencies. So if you want to apply for a grant, all you need to do is look at the relevant literature, look at the relevant funding bodies. Then you can be able to see all the funding agencies that fund such kind of research. So that is that. Then there is what is referred to as the impact factor. What is referred to as the impact factor. So this impact factor, it measures the impact of your research in the academic within the literature. So this is the simple expression that you can use to compute the impact factor. 2 years cumulative citation of a published article over 2 years. That will give you the impact factor. If you look at the expression clearly, you find out that the less number of articles you accept and the high number of citations you have, that is when your impact factor will shoot up. You can see from the expression, the lower the number of published articles and the higher the citations, that is how you now give you a high impact factor. So if this is a typical database, we call this JCR, Journal Citation Report. It comes out in July every year. So when it comes out, it's a report of all the journals that are indexed in Web of Science, depending on the discipline. It can be from the sciences, art and humanities, or social sciences. So it runs based on the impact factor. The one with the highest number of impact factor will be the top journal in the world, followed by the next. That is how it continues up to the last journal. That is moved in descending order. So this is that. Still, we are in the journal citation report. This is the impact factor of this journal, 3.5. This is the number of published articles. Number of citations, 253, 716, and the number of articles published, 224. So when you divide, you have 3.196 impact factor. So that is how impact factor is being computed in JCR. So then these journals are classified into Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. What does that mean by Q1? That is first quartile, second quartile, third quartile, and fourth quartile. So you can have joint journal that is in first quartile, that is the top journal, followed by the second quartile, which is the Q2, Q3, and Q4, those at the bottom. So for you to know which journal is Q1, which one is Q2, which one is Q3, Q4, it will take the 25% of the total number of journals. Those ones that fall within the 25%, you refer to them as Q1. Then in Q2, you take the next 25%, that is Q2. Q3, the third 25%, that is Q3. Then Q4 is the fourth 25%. If you those ones that fall within that range are Q4 journals. And this is only applied to journals indexed in Web of Science. So let's look at Scopus database. The Scopus database is the largest abstract and citation database of peer-reviewed literature. But the literature, you can find the literature indexed in Web of Science, I can still find the same literature in Scopus, because they are indexing their database for indexing journals. So you can get both of them. It's hardly you find journal that is in Web of Science that cannot be found in Scopus. But you can find many journals in Scopus that cannot be found in Web of Science. So as I said, ISI can be regarded as a subset of Scopus, because you can find almost all journals that you can find in Web of Science, they can be found in Scopus database. Like the ranking bodies, they use Scopus to determine research output of universities. All this ranking body, hearing ranking, world ranking. This is the database they use to run the research output of universities. Not that they go to the university, they only log into Scopus and see what the university are doing. But if I want to know what GSU are doing, I don't need to come to GSU. I'll just log in, type in Compensation University, and see what are the researchers doing. I can see the researchers, the research output, who are the top researchers, who are the new researchers, what are the number of publications they have, what is the citation of the university, and so on. I don't need to come to GSU to know which research are they conducting. Just log into Scopus to see everything there. So, and there are also funding bodies that also go to Scopus and look at the top researchers in a particular area, and then approach them to apply for grant to conduct certain research work. Even research and development unit also normally key in and see what is the hot research areas that can be able to now ask their researchers to start working in the area. Then, okay, you see a ranking body like World Ranking, Time Higher Education, and QS World Ranking. They all use Scopus database to run the research output of universities across the globe. So this is Scopus interface. In Scopus, you can be able to search the name of an auto profile free. For any other thing, you need institutional subscription to do that. So this one is just a typical example of FUT Similar, whether you know Similar. So I only log in and then search. This is the number of the literature from the university. And you can see they have about 1,100 scholars that have published here. And you can see the top researchers. Who are the top researchers in the university? So this 865, these are the disciplines. So this is a typical example of what I said. I was invited by QS World University Ranking to rank the universities in Africa. So it's a questionnaire that I will be given to you. So you can see how they ask the question. You can see up to 10, I can choose up to 10 in Nigeria. But what I will do, what do I do? They give me access because they know I may not have access to the academic database. So what they do, they give me access to the Scopus database. So I need to log in and then see the universities, 10 universities that have the highest number of research output. That's the university I will now be able to tick that these are the universities that have such kind of research output in computer science. So it depends on the discipline. So if you want your high visibility, your university scholars have to have some publication in journals that are indexed in Scopus and Web of Science. That's when the university will now have high visibility, and when you come to research output ranking, they will also be coming out. So you can see how their portfolio looks like. I was invited 3 times, 2017, 2016, and 2019. So this is another academic database. So we're running out of time. So this is our academic database, the interface. This is another one I think we explore. I'll give you the material and then you go through the material to see all what is there. So this is another academic database, science data that you can search depending on the area you are conducting your research. This is for medical. This is also academic database for education. This is abstracting and indexing. So you can find, when we say abstracting and indexing, it means that which database is that journal being indexed. This is a typical example that you are seeing on the board. So you can see the name of the literature. So if you go to a website, if you want to know whether it's in Scopus or Web of Science, only need to click on abstracting and indexing to see all where that journal has been indexed. This is a typical example. You see Scopus, Science and Technology Index, and so on. So all these academic database and subscription based, the top ones. So you can see the sample of their prices there. So if you can suggest to your institution for them to subscribe, these are the sample prices: $7 annually, $20,000, $7,000, $5,000, after that of $3,000 annually. So you can be able to suggest to your institution to subscribe so that you can have access to all those top literature. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haruna Chiroma, for this. Thank you for this wonderful lecture. Very interesting, very technical. And it's like we have all understood what he was trying to convey. Well, anyway, we have the material here. and we will give it to you so that it should be a reference material. Thank you, Doctor, for this lecture. So we will not allow for any comments, any questions. Let's take the second presentation, and after it, I give it to the chairman so that he will moderate the comments and questions. Now, the next presentation is by Dr. Maglun Antirionla. Dr. Maglun Yonla obtained his MD, National Diploma Business Administration and Management from Plateau State University, Barkin Ladi, BSc Business Management, MBA in Entrepreneurship from University of Jos, Nigeria, PGDE from Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto, and PhD in Entrepreneurship from Makerere University Business School, Uganda. Maglo has published over 7 academic articles in different international journals such as European Journal of Business Management, American Journal of Business Diversity, Journal of Organizational Psychology, and Journal of Applied Business and Economics, etc. Maglo published one book on essentials of entrepreneurship recently. He has attended conferences within Nigeria at the Institute of Entrepreneurs Nigeria and Association of Business Educators of Nigeria. He has passion for research interest for using positive psychological resources, self-starting behavior, personal initiative, and role models on self-employment among graduates in Nigeria. This is in spite of the increasing rate of unemployment and crime rate in the society. He has just returned from his study and resumed work at the Faculty of Management Sciences, Department of Management Sciences, Plateau State University, Bokos, as assistant lecturer. Presently, he is assisting in supervising 7 MSc students from University of Jos. We now welcome Dr. Yonla for his presentation.
Good afternoon, the chairman of this conference, Professor Sadiq Baba, the HOD of Business Administration, Dr. Babangida, other senior colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am here to present a paper on writing an effective research proposal in this conference. Right away, let me go to the main subject matter. Research proposal is a key issue in the academic environment like this that everyone should be acquainted with. And this is because as academicians or as scholars, we need to get acquainted to it. A case at hand is the Plan A research and Plan B research, which before you start a proposal or any research work, a scholar is supposed to have 2 things in mind. The Plan A is talking about a survey of entities, e.g. public schools or private schools, Plan B is talking about an entity, which is organization. And in this case, when you look at the two differences, is that one is talking about a group of organization while the other one is talking about one. Now the second bullet is the purpose. The purpose is to generalize findings in the case of organizations, while the second one is to solve a management problem within an organization. Bullet 2 is talking about conceptual framework, where you may have different variables that would explain the dependent variable. While the other one in Plan B is talking about works with one key variable that can explain an organization. The preamble here is to prepare the researcher or the scholar to know that before you venture into a research issue, you must have in mind, one, what is your unit of inquiry? What is your unit of analysis? This is established in Plan A and B. Now, this takes us to the major concept, what is research proposal? Research proposal in a layman language is a plan or an intention that a researcher or a scholar can go into it intending that when all is certified, then he now or she now convert it into proper research process. Now in research proposal, you as a scholar, you must think about how concise the topic is, and it should be such that it carry information that will give readers or viewer meaning. For example, a topic, self-employment among graduates, is straight to the point, isn't it? Or looking at the survival of SMEs in Gombe State. Now these such topics are straight to the point, they are informative, and they give meanings. So as a scholar, before you start writing proposal, you must look at that as key issues. Now the first impression of what reviewers should expect to read in the subsequent pages. Of course, when writing a proposal, you must have what we call consistency of thought. When you put down a sentence or you put down a poem, you must be able to think of which point follow next and what meaning does it give that will give a flow of the subject matter. The next bullet is about the independent and the dependent variable. This is key for scholars to know. Why? Because a lot of scholars have started writing proposals that they cannot identify which one is the dependent variable and which one is the independent variable. Now, as scholars, you will agree with me in the management and social sciences that the moment a scholar does not identify what is independent and dependent variable, it affects the scholar from the objective right down to hypothesis. That means it does not have a flow of consistency. Now the last one is, it can be question informed. The research topic can be in form of question. This now takes us to research proposal format. Haven't talked about the research topic. What then is the research proposal format? How does it look like? Of course, you know, for us in the management and social sciences, we don't get stick to a particular format, but there is a general format that can give meaning to whoever is reading the work, and globally it should have meaning. With me here on this slide, we have the title page, we have the body, and the body includes the background to the study, statement of the problem, purpose of the study, research objective, research questions, significance of the study or motivation of the study, conceptual framework, literature review, methodology. Permit me to say this, sir. In Makerere Business School, we did not carry out our research understanding of the problem, but I carried out my research in statement of opportunity. I was positive that all the hypotheses I hypothesized was going to be positive. And you know, as psychologists say, that whoever dwells more on a problem is bound to have faces of problem. But when you are positive, you replicate the positive, which you may study and it change the society. And that is what I stand for as a positive scholar. Now, under methodology, we have what we call philosophical assumption. It is key for a scholar to know what philosophical assumption is. You see, philosophical assumption is important when a scholar is writing proposal, because a scholar needs to know what is the ontology, what is epistemology. If ontology is all about the nature and reality of knowledge, a scholar needs to contextualize the topic of such so that he gives meaning into the philosophical stand. And this will inform, again, whether the philosophical assumption is going to have a stand either on positivistic, interpretivistic, or it could be a critical realism. What do I mean in this case? Now, positivistic is purely structured. It is quantitative, is inductive in nature. So we need to know this even at the level of writing articles that matters. All these things must come in place so that it gives more facts about the research content. Now, this takes us to a research design. Research design in this case will talk about whether the method is mixed, whether it's critical realism. Why does a scholar need that? Scholars like Tai 2004, Robia 2019 affirm that mixing a different philosophical assumption will give more meaning to a research, meaning that when you combine the quantitative and the qualitative, it will remedy the limitation of one of the methods. Now, critical realism, I see most of the time, scholars seem to combine the positivistic and the interpretivistic as critical realism. No. When you talk about critical realism in social and management science, we are talking about the triangle. What is this triangular meaning? You must have the qualitative, which is positivistic. You must have the interpretive, which is qualitative. Then you must have experimental. These three cardinal points will give you what we call critical realism. This now takes us to the study population. Why is study population important in a research proposal? You must know where your population is coming from. Let me give you a brief experience. There was a paper I sent I sent a paper for publication. And the comment they sent to me was that, did you not draw population of your study? Meaning that it's very key. They want to see the reliability and validity of the instrument that has been analyzed. And it must come from a population of a study. Now, it is important again to know that after drawing a population, you must have the source. You must have the year. It has to be very, it's very, very important for scholars to know this. You must cite, where you get the population and the year that the population is gotten from. This now takes us to sample design, sample size, and selection procedure. A scholar must know that when he gets his population, he must establish beyond doubt the type of procedure used to arrive at the sample size. You could use Yamane Funglan, you could use Presley and Morgan, and we have a number of them. So these are issues that scholars must get to know about because it gives a good content of work. The next one is the data collection method. As I have earlier said, under the philosophical stance or assumption, this now informs you to use a particular type of data collection. As I have said, that when you are using positivistic, it's purely quantitative and deductive in nature. And when you are using interpretive, it's qualitative. Here, when you come to use the data collection method now, it has to be very clear. The next one is measurement of variables and operationalization. What makes the difference of scholarly writing in management and social sciences? I've been emphasizing on this because I belong to the management, and social science group. So it's important for you as a scholar to operationalize. What does operationalization mean? If you pick, for example, personal initiative to test on graduate self-employment, you must be able to operationalize what is self-employment. Now, if 1,000,001 scholars have operationalized self-employment as a process of getting things done by graduate, what then is your own operational definition as a scholar that is writing a new paper? So, scholars in management and social science must know that operationalization is very, very important. After that, you might go to talk about the validity and reliability of the study variables. How do you intend to now establish the validity and reliability of your study variables? These could be established through Kronberg alpha. And when you're using SPSS, you could go into, exploratory factor analysis and other statistical package that will establish the validity and reliability of the study variable. The next one is data analysis presentation. In data analysis, it's also important. Most of what happen with scholars is that they forget that data analysis is important to include. So, it is important to include the type of data analysis package you use, whether SPSS, whether AMOS, whether Atlas TI in the case of qualitative, and in Vivo 9. These are things you need to include clearly in the proposal's writing. Because of time, permit me to just run through them. You need to include references, you need to include research plan is very important as a scholar when writing a proposal. Next one is budget, last one is appendices. Now, in proposal writing again, you need to take into consideration writing background to the study is very, very clear. You need to learn what we call heuristic. Writing heuristic. Writing heuristic gives you the logical format through which, when you follow it, you don't have problem with what we call consistency of thought. What I know in a background is things like the constant. You must have a statement that is generally accepted by scholars, that you don't need to cite anybody. This is what we call a constant in a background of a study. After which, what is the situation or what is the context you are writing on? It's important for you to take that into consideration, after which you must state the situation within the context of writing a proposal. Then you talk about the catastrophe. The catastrophe, how bad is the situation of the study that you are embarking on. The next one is to talk about action. What action is it that has been taken, either by the government, either by NGO, to salvage the topic of such? You need to bring in such scholarly factors. Because of time, it appears I am talking too much in a particular place. Please permit me. Statement of the problem, as I have told you, I went statement of opportunity, but for the purpose of presentation, it's important for scholars to know what are those things needed in statement of the problem. A scholar should be centered on the dependent variable. When you are writing scholarly, your statement of the problem must come from dependent variable. You must seek for literatures, good literatures, that will establish the problem of the study concept. It is also important for a scholar to know what is wrong out there. Why are you coming in to now do to solve the problem? These things a scholar must know in writing a proposal. Excuse me, let me move to conceptualization. Again, a scholar must have this good understanding, conceptualization of research framework. Now, as I have mentioned earlier, that conceptualization is that which will explain what is the idea and what is the deal, isn't it? Graphically, it's good for you to put so that you will be reflecting in mind as you write, you're knowing that a particular variable is explaining a dependent variable. Now, in developing your conceptual framework, you must identify the relevant concepts, you must define those concepts, you must operationalize, you must identify moderating or intervening variables, then identify the relationship. Here is a linear model relationship. Assuming this is the concept you intend to study, this is just a simple linear relationship, or we call it direct relationship. In this case, you will agree with me that many scholars must have studied on this concept using direct relationship. But as a scholar, what makes it different from the ones you have read? Now, the easiest way, I feel, that scholars should know is bringing an intervention variable. What are they? We have mediating variable, we have moderating variable. But before you embark on writing using mediating variable, you need to understand the nitty-gritties of what a mediating variable is. What does it stand for? Why is it mediation variable? It must have a logical meaning. The last one is the moderating variable. This is how a conceptual framework of a moderating variable look like. Now, moderating variable stands for a debate among scholars that is persistent. Now, moderation variable again is the multiplication of the moderator and the main effect. For you to know whether the combination of these two variables will have an effect on the dependent variable. Now, this will give you a gap in your study and you continue on. At this moment, I sincerely want to say I am grateful for this great opportunity, and I thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maglon and Suriola. We are so much grateful. I have to tell you that we did not invite Dr. Yona for this presentation. We invited another professor to make this presentation. So when I was told that that professor will not be available, I wasn't happy. But with this kind of presentation that we have just seen now, I'm still wondering if the professor would have done anything better. Yeah, truly, yeah, I have seen, I'm passionate about research and I'm passionate about people who I see that they actually understand the art of research. Thank you so much, Doctor, for this wonderful presentation. It's highly appreciated. So we are running out of time, and I will hand over the microphone to the chairman, who we have to apologize to because he was supposed to have started or settled the ball rolling, but I have jumped the gun. So we now invite him to make his remarks, and from there we open if there are some questions and also some comments. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. The organizing committee, respected delegates from academia and the industry, good afternoon all. This afternoon session is about research colloquium, which is in essence a workshop style interactional session. We have just taken two submissions from two learned colleagues of ours, Dr. Haruna Chiroma and Dr. Magnus Iola. We highly enjoyed this session and we very much appreciate the knowledge they shared with us. They spoke about two important aspects. We are all gathered here to make and listen to presentations from two different perspectives. Those of us from the academia and our brothers and sisters from the industry, we want to cross-breed ideas, ponder, discuss, and come up with common position on global issues centered around the main theme of this conference. Let's combine the three presentations we took today. The keynote presenter made a statement. In all that he said, the key factor is a clarion call for a synergy between the industry and the academia. The first speaker in this afternoon session projected to us the existing database and information hubs on the internet, which are technically replacing our traditional libraries. How and where to seek an information from has been described to us in comprehensive terms by Dr. Chiro. He went further to classify the degrees and rankings of journals and databases for us to distinguish a genuine source of information from a fake one. Every type of information is there on the internet. Which one is genuine and which one is fake? As researchers, we need to quote from a right and correct source. Sometimes we have every cause to quarrel with our research students who are bringing references from trashes like Wikipedia and others. Have we ever experienced it? Anybody can pick his pen and enter into a blog page with whatever sort of information, but its validity is what matters. When you want to establish your point, make sure that the source of your information is reliable enough. On how many occasions have we been listening to fake news, reading fake news on our social media? There is always a difference between social media and the mainstream media. Mainstream media is edited and it's official. We take it as an authoritative source of information, whereas social media is subject to verification. The second speaker this afternoon gave us an outline of what an award-winning proposal should look like. For those of us who have been following events, last month there was an issue with the Executive Secretary of TED Fund, Professor Suleiman Ogoro. He made a statement that more than 90% of university professors cannot write an award-winning proposal. And it evoked a very serious debate. However, being seated in a gathering like this, we can make a meaning to what a professor said to his colleagues. He was never undermining them, but rather he was awakening them up that the traditional classroom style of writing cannot attract any fund from prospective funding agencies. You need to write what the funding agency wants to see. Your research proposal must be problem solving. Your research proposal must satisfy the needs of the funding agency. These are some of the strategies as outlined on one of the slides, which gave us a comprehensive summary of all that is needed in a comprehensive proposal. Therefore, anytime you are writing, take for instance this conference, we must make sure that whatever we write, whatever we present is in line with the main theme. Otherwise, the editors will never accept our paper. So also with the funding agency. The key area is the thematic center of attraction upon which we shall make our presentations. Based on what we have just learned, we want to take questions and contributions from participants. Since now we have obtained the global information which rallies around writing an award-winning proposal, a scientific or technical form of writing that will take its source from a legitimate, valid, and reliable information source. Having that information is one step. Packaging it in an acceptable manner is the second aspect. Questions and contributions, please. We start from the high table.
Okay, questions and contributions. One. From the high table?
We start from the high table. The chairman, LOC, our host, the head of department, and his powerful team members, our powerful delegates. Any question? Yes? Your name, your affiliation, then state whether it's a question or a contribution.
All protocols observed. My name is Dr. Charles Ephraim, University of Calabar. I'm talking with the first speaker, we talked about our journals trying to be in highly rated database. As I'm talking to you now, in my school, there's a problem going on in the A&P. We were told that unless you have your journals that are cited on Thomson Reuters with impact factor, that the journal will not count. I have my colleague who have up to 50 journals. Some of them are found in Scopus, Google Scholar, because they told us before it was Google Scholar, Scopus, and the rest of them. And we did all that. But now they changed the rules and said Thomson Reuters. And by looking at what my colleague has published, only 2 of them was found in there that had the impact factor. So we now question, is it not a way of colonizing the African talent again? Where we are talking about publications from Africa. Now this is a paper here, given to me to publish here. If I decide to publish here, this is not on Google Scholar. How will my institution treat that? So this is the problem I want you to take as a challenge. Are you not killing the African journalists by looking at and tying it to A&P, as my school is doing, or what else others want to say? Thank you.
Permit me to stand on the existing protocol. My name is Dr. Ejika Sambo from Mautech Yola, Management Department. Mine is a contribution to the second speaker. In writing a proposal, especially I believe in this hall, one of the purposes of this conference is to teach our postgraduate students so that they should know how to write a proposal. In writing a proposal, first and foremost, as the speaker said, you must choose a topic that is researchable. Don't pick any topic that you cannot be able to make research on it. First, by identifying your variable, as you said. These variables, when they are identified, you should find what are the proxies, the constructs that are in these variables. If you are able to identify this, I think your problem is almost half solved. Secondly, as he said, when you identify this variable, although he has a plan, because of time he was rushing, he could not give us this complete. Especially in thesis writing. If you are writing a thesis, the proposal comprises of chapter 1 to 3. Your chapter 1 comprises of various items which he mentioned earlier on. 1, you must give the background. The background could come from the original problem you are seeing physically that you want to solve. You can equally generate this background from literatures. Then you form it to be your background. Secondly, you now give us from the background, you tell us what are the major problems that you have identified in a statement format. And that's why we call it statement. And it is from there you generate your objectives. Questions and hypotheses will come. Not all researches carry hypotheses. And that's why I think he could not mention it earlier on. Now, if you have gotten it, you also look at what will be the significance. Who are the shareholders that will be beneficial to these studies? You consider that. And then you look at the scope covered. In the scope of your study, especially on the chapter, it is formed based on 3 areas. You can identify your scope geographically, you can identify your scope by the study you are carrying out, and you can identify your scope by time frame. So you give this as your scope. Then at the end, you tell us the limitations of the study when you are done. And then chapter 2, basically chapter 2 is divided on 3 basic areas. You have the conceptual issue or conceptual framework, where you now look at the proxies that you have identified. And then you tell us what other people have said on these proxies. After that, you tell us the theoretical framework. where theories that are supporting your own work that you are doing, you mention them. And then you give us the empirical studies that have been conducted related to your work in other places. It is from there that you'll be able to identify the gaps in your study that you want to fill in this issue. And then the last is the chapter 3. In this chapter 3, basically it is your own work, because it is where you want to tell us what you intend to do in your own work. That is why the research design, which is the first item, you tell us the plan you have. Are you going to use survey research? And if you are using survey research, then you tell us. In this chapter 3, you use present tenses, because you are still intending. This is what you intend to do. And that is where we normally get those that are copying, because in that place you see some people tell was, which means it is not his own work. And then after that, as I said, you identify your population, tell us your sample, and then the sampling techniques you want to use. From there, you tell us the method of your data collection. You may likely tell us also the sources of your information. Are you using primary data? Are you using secondary data? Which one are you using? You tell us. And then you tell us the techniques you will use for this. Another important thing I wanted to explain in this is the validity and reliability of this instrument. This instrument you want to use, like the questionnaire, you want to use it for primary data. Then this questionnaire, is it adapted or adopted? It is somebody's work you are picking to see, or you are forming your own, or you want to modify them. You also need to explain. And then these questions, we said you can only validate it either through contest validity or face-to-face validity. When you are doing it, you can give experts in that field to check. This question you have said, can they give you what you want to get from your variables? Can they solve the problem? If not, then they will now reframe it for you. And then reliability, you can compare it to check actually whether it is it. You can do pilot tests. You can go and give them on the field to check whether it is what you are requiring or not. From there you can get whatever you want to get. Thank you very much.
I'm Ganjuma Abdullahi Manga, an MSc student with Gombe State University, Department of Business Admin. I want to commend the two paper presenters, as well as the organizers of this particular program, for identifying these particular two topics, for instance. And to us, it's like these particular two topics, as well as the other person who contributed, the ideas towards reaffirming what we have done, and also to put us on track on where we are going. But my question is to the second presenter on background of the study. You made mention of a concept which is a constant, that an opening background can start with a constant, and you can start with a strong statement which is generally known and well accepted. But from our experience at the proposal defense, it's like scholars differ on this particular aspect, or I can say there was no consensus among scholars. And to me, I've observed the lack of consensus originates maybe from where a particular scholar has done his studies and the other scholar has done his studies. And in particular reference, you said we can open up with a constant, which is a general statement that is well known without citation. But with our experience at the defense, certain constants of this nature come into being, and some of the observation where is the source. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contributions. We now take brief responses from the two presenters. There was a first question to the first presenter. Can you repeat your question?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Before I respond, I feel happy as when you are talking, I know that you know what a Scopus is, you know Web of Science. In fact, I feel happy by just mentioning these two academic databases. You said that it's publishing in such kind of journal, it seems as it's a way of crippling the journals in Africa. Did I get it correctly? To me, it's not like that. It is issue of competition. Look at the whole world, academic world. That is where they do publish. For instance now, if you are a professor, you are expected to be professor in each and every university in this world. So how will you make your professorship to be global? That is when you complete in such kind of databases. Journals that are indexed in such kind of academic databases. But the serious issues we have here, where we're having difficulty in publishing there, is this issue of grant. If you can look at it critically, it hardly you see any institution in Nigeria that gives any reasonable amount for grant. That of that fund is 2 million, which is not up to the one that you can pay your research assistant. By the time you're giving sufficient, and let's say you have 200 million as a research grant, you can put advert, you can employ the best PG student anywhere in the world, you can come to your lab, you have the breakthrough that you can publish there easily. But because the reason why you're having difficulties, this issue of research grant, just look at it critically. It's hardly you find an institution that will give you a reasonable amount for grant. And the institution of University of Calabar, I don't know whether they have done their own responsibility, because if you ask someone to publish in Web of Science, you also have responsibility that you do. Number one, you must provide access to all these academic databases I will display here. Number two, those top publishers, Elsevier, Springer, and so on, you must also give subscription to their scholars. And number three, the university must have their own grant that will be competitive among the scholars in the university to apply, so they can be able to get grant for this research. And number four, the department will now send all the requirements of what they want in their lab to the institution for them to procure those facilities and put it there. So they have also their responsibility. When they put all this environment in place, that is when you ask someone to go and publish in Web of Science. Because there is no way you don't have this thing on ground and you are asking somebody to go and publish in Web of Science. It's just like you pick a 500 level student or 400 level students to submit his papers for professorship. Just imagine that. It's just something that is impossible. So at least when you go back, try to make them to also do their own part, and you also do your own part. And you look at this, if you look at our journals, you know we are published there, and we are published also in those ones. If you look at the way we put I didn't say all, but most of our journals, the way we do our peer review process is not rigorous.
Are you saying this one?
No, I didn't say. I said not all. I said not all. You find out that you will be given a manuscript, and the reviewer, all of them will be maybe in one institution across, just nearby. No, I published there. At least I published at least 20 within Nigeria before I start moving out. Before I meet somebody that will now pick me and say, well, come and see how we do it. It's somebody that put me through.
We have other academic database apart from
I know, but these are the top ones across the globe, and you are using their product. If you go to hospital now, you take drugs, you take medicine. Go and check out complete those results. When you go to Web of Science, just put Pfizer, you will see the antibodies that will come there from there. Put Glasgow, you see the antibodies that will come from there. Anytime you see a new drug coming out, go to Web of Science, put that particular, a keyword, you will see what will come out. All the research that you are also enjoying it and enjoying it, all of us are enjoying the research there. So definitely, there is something good. We have to look at also our own faults and look at where we'll be able to amend and now go with the group. Self-driving cars are coming very soon. You're happy to go and start buying. Go and see the research they are publishing in website of the self-driving car. 5G will soon come in. Go and see the research that we have done. How many billions we spend on doing this? Go to the website, you will see it. And all of you, me and you will start doing 5G.
agree with you because you're saying, I said, please, this is something that we can bring and people to support this. The first thing they will tell you is they are going to collect us couples, but they are not interested. Not the first thing you just hear them say, that's my point here.
Yes, yes. I must share part of his sentiment. Please, we give him a round of applause. We can make reason from his point of view. My personal advice to him and our generality is that we may feel that this is a reintroduction of colonialization in a new era. Academically, we are to be colonized by some other people who may determine our standard, when in the actual sense we are not on a common footing with them. Granted, since we all compete in one world, what our presenter was saying is a case of our football player. A Nigerian player will play World Cup against any other team in this world. So also, we want our academics to compete with other academics worldwide in the World Cup tournament. So let's start from somewhere. We advise our institutions that our institutional-based journals should begin to affiliate with our nearby databases. We have AJOL, African Journal Online. At ATPU, for instance, we have 2 faculty-based journals that are affiliated to it. We are extending our affiliation with a database at South Africa. We know how advanced South Africa is. We start relating with our families within Africa and begin to form a very strong bonding. The more you affiliate with other databases, the more robust your review and assessment criteria will be, which is the main concern of our presenter. Once you don't have a robust criteria, they will not accept you up there. So we start from somewhere and be graduated. We start from somewhere and be graduated. One day, most of our journals will find place up there. Thank you very much. The second presenter will take the second question. Will answer the second question.
Okay, thank you very much. I need to go straight to the point. To my brother, my HOD and Professor Buffer, permit me to say that in the management and social sciences, if there were agreement, we wouldn't have been schooling. So the debate in social sciences is a continuous process. But what I learned in the course of time is that when your supervisor tells you that he does not align with what you have written as a constant, the simple question is that ask him why is it not accepted. If he has a spurious argument, then you retreat. And again, in the course of writing a background, there is what we call content background and contextual background. Now, it depends on which approach you are going in for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you for listening. And now I hand over the mic to the organizing committee.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We are running out of time, and the last part of this afternoon presentation is a token to our presenters, and we will call on the heads of department to come and present to our presenters. First one goes to Dr. Haruna Chioma. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, HOD will present to you. It's okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, so honored. Yeah, they are structured. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, sir. The second one is the second presenter, Dr. Yola from Plateau State University, of course. Thank you so much. We are so grateful for this wonderful presentation that have generated interesting contributions. So that's all we have for now. We are joining to tomorrow, and tomorrow, by His will, we will reconvene at 8:30 a.m. But not here, but in the postgraduate school. The PG school is along this road. So there is a PG school, I think people will be directed. If you ask PG school, after this building there is a library building, and after this there is the management sciences, and also there is a new contract that is going on. Then there are some theaters, and then you have the PG school there. So we'll be glad to have you tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. We arrived and have our breakfast. From there, we move to parallel sessions whereby we'll make our presentations and get some reviews to improve the papers. Yeah. So, anything? Okay, finally, vote of thanks from the HOD and closing.
Thank you very much, Chairman of LOS. So I want to use this opportunity to thank Professor Bakar Bapa for finding time to be with us and share this session. Thank you very much, Prof. And the two presenters, I thank you very much for finding time to come and contribute in this research colloquium. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your efforts. And I want to sincerely thank the chairman and his team, LOC, for up and doing, organizing and making this conference possible. So thank you very much. I want to use this opportunity also to thank all the staff of business administration for the support and effort they put in making this conference real. And for the participants, we really appreciate your interest for the conference. And we hope you will enjoy being with us, and you will enjoy Gombe State University and Gombe. And you will have a fruitful contribution on your presentations, and I believe that will improve your own articles, and you will have, I wish everybody safe journey back to our various destinations. For our students, thank you for the participation and doing all you are doing to make it happen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think as Mr. Chairman says, we declare this close until tomorrow by 8:30. Thank you very much.